Well, welcome back to Becoming Emotionally Available, where we talk about the patterns that keep us from love and connection and how to begin changing them. Well, today we're going to talk about loneliness. And it's not something to feel shamed about. It's something that's very human. So I want you all to know that if you're feeling lonely or you think you're feeling lonely, you are not alone. And you're with an expert on loneliness and human connection. This is Carrie Sackett. How are you, Carrie? How are you doing?
Hi, Dagmar. It's really great to be with you today. I've been really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Me too. We haven't talked about loneliness yet on this podcast, and it's something that a lot of people are struggling with, but it's also something that a lot of people are probably feel shamed talking about. And so I'm so glad you're here and we can just be honest and talk about this.
Yeah. Actually, when I'm in a room and I introduce myself to people and I say I'm America's loneliness coach, everyone says, "Oh my God, that's great. That's so important." And then when I meet with my marketing people, they're like, "Call yourself the America's loneliness coach." They won't sell.
Well, I'll tell you this, it does because it's very relatable.
Yeah, exactly. We all feel lonely.
We all feel lonely and it's real. And a
Yeah.
lot of times in marketing, we like to be fluffy, but
Yeah.
that's not what really connects people. It's the human side, it's being real. So I disagree.
Yeah.
Uh, I want so I guess we'll just start. We'll just start. You call yourself because you mentioned that you call yourself America's loneliness coach. What
Mhm.
so out of curiosity, I'm just curious, being ignorant myself, what do most people misunderstand when it comes to loneliness? Like, what's most misunderstood about it?
I would say that's a great question. What's most misunderstood really has a lot to do with why we have the crisis,
Mhm.
because the misunderstanding is I have to fix my own loneliness. And it's very hard to get unlonely when each one of us as individuals walks around thinking this is my personal problem that I'm ashamed of, and I better figure it out before I step out into the world. That's keeping us more lonely.
So what I'm hearing you say is people feel like they're terminally unique, like they're the only ones facing this, and they're scared to talk about it.
Yes. Yes. And also it's how we're taught to see ourselves. So it's deep, it's not, it's that's part of our culture now. It's
Mhm.
being told to look inward and don't step out into the world or have a hard conversation or say what you really feel unless you're already a regulated person, a
So
normal person.
So it's like the same metaphor people have, like, I'll start running when I lose weight. And you can't, you need to start doing it to
Yeah.
lose weight. And so people, and you feel that because we're in this world, I guess we're in this so-called world of self-reflection. People are wanting to become most self-aware that they often think, like you said, you do it alone. You sit there, you think yourself out of certain thoughts, and then you can come to the world and feel better and talk about it.
My physical response to what you just said was to feel very upset.
Yeah.
That's just hearing that formulate that, and that is how we understand how to live our lives. And makes us lonely. It keeps us from connecting with others.
I totally agree. And that's why I'm so big into community. I'm big into my group that I have because
Mhm.
that's how we learn. We actually can walk through triggers when we're with other people.
Exactly. Well, this
And
is what you and I hit it off. As we're the
exactly. And we're on the same page on that. And do you think, so I just curiosity, because of the pandemic, we had the pandemic, we had COVID. Do you think that people were lonely before then and all it did is it exposed loneliness more? What are your thoughts?
well, the answer is yes. again, we have created this world. It's not only happening to us, of seeing ourselves as separate. Our operating assumption is that we're separate from others. I
Mm.
do me, you do you. But we're actually a social species. We're always living in relation to others. Others are always impacting us. We're impacting on others. The world impacts on us. So that mindset is hitting its limits, and we have to find a new way to see even who we are in the world in relation to others and the world and nature and everything. I mean, we're feeling the limits of that everywhere, politically, environmentally, economically. There's
Yeah.
there's an emotional fallout to that.
You feel like there's this separation, like you said, there's this wall. It's almost like a wall. Like here, I'm here, you're here. My
Yeah.
differences politically are here, your differences are here, and no one is hearing each other out.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'm a this, and I know which personality type is my best partner, and I'll sit
Yeah.
back here and observe that person to see what traits they're exhibiting, and then I will decide all by myself who they are. Whereas how we really discover who we are is when we're creating something
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And the
It-
most obvious example of that is babies. Babies can't grow without other humans encouraging them, supporting them. And we create this magical environment with babies where they babble. They're not making any sense at all. Do we stand back and judge them for which type of not sense making they're making to evaluate whether they'll ever become a speaker or not? No, we lean in and we encourage them even though they're not making it. We relate to them as if they were speakers.
Yeah.
That's a different understanding of human development and who we are in the world that we don't that's not the world we're living in right now as adults.
Isn't that interesting that as kids, that's what we have. We rely on, right, other kids and other people. And to
Yeah.
your point, there isn't really a judgment there. And then somewhere along the line, we've fallen off as adults, and we're looking at people through one lens, and there's a lot of judgment in that.
Yes. And because we've been organized to see people in categories and labels, and as
Yeah,
if we could stand back objectively and know what the other person is thinking. When I work with my clients, I help them develop the muscles to be able to actually ask
yeah,
the person, how are you experiencing me right now? What are you thinking? And then help them continue to build up that toolkit so they can stay in that conversation, even though it's uncomfortable.
yeah. The staying is so important, especially when it's uncomfortable, because it's easy to walk away and run away from that. And like we talk a lot, and I know we've talked dived in a little bit on into obviously the loneliness, but how would you? I'm curious, define loneliness. Like, how would someone know? I know this is really a loaded question, but how would they know, or what are some maybe traits or things? Because, we often talk about, uh, and that's the thing I really grapple and struggle with in the therapeutic world. I'm not against mental health, obviously. I'm not against therapy, but a lot of it is like, you know, you got to work through all of this inner healing, and a lot of it is, to your point, in isolation. You work with a therapist, you come home, you sit to yourself, you journal on your own, you read on your own, you do all that. And so there is, I mean, obviously good in figuring out stuff on your own. There is a process, but you also need a balance with other people because, like, to your point, you can't grow without the connections of others and getting that feedback. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how would you define loneliness then? Because there's isolating, obviously, what I was mentioning, where you're just doing it completely by yourself. there's
Yeah.
also being with people, but there can be also too much of that and you become, codependent. So I'm just curious, what is loneliness to you? How would you define it? How would you, what are some things to look for in somebody that could be lonely?
Yeah. It's a subjective state. Some people live by themselves, just to
Mhm.
simplify,
Yes.
live alone and feel connected to their histories, to their communities, to people in their life. Some people live amidst many people don't don't feel a connection. So it's that subjective state of disconnection, of
Mm.
alienation, of um, not being able to hold on to the things that we make and create in our lives with others, even if that's one ordinary conversation at the coffee shop, or whether that's an intimate conversation that you've had with your partner or a family member or a longtime friend or a stranger on an airplane, wherever we communicate with other humans, that we're in a crisis of not um, being able to hold on to the things of connection that we make. So it's a subjective state of feeling outside of, other than disconnection. And
Okay, so you feel disconnected, and obviously you can be with a partner feeling disconnected. You can be by yourself feeling disconnected.
yeah.
It's that and because I feel that everyone wants some form of sense of belonging. Um, and do you feel like that is also part of it, where you don't feel like you have that?
Oh yeah. I think we're all, you put yourself anywhere on the spectrum of loneliness you want. I think we're all craving community.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And do you feel that because we're in the world of technology? I mean, there's AI, there's social media, there's dating apps. I know a lot of folks use apps from my community and
Yeah.
clients that I work with. Do you feel that those, in a way, are also keeping us disconnected?
Well, oh yes. And um we have made a disconnected world. And
Mm.
also, the powers that be make a lot of money off of us being disconnected. So we can't leave, it's too reductionist to take this mass social phenomenon. In the US, 30% of Americans in surveys say that they feel lonely at least once a week, like lonely to very lonely once a week. Young people, that goes up to 3 times a week. Are the generation that would be the most hopeful and inspired and agitated to make a better world are feeling extremely lonely 3 times a week.
Mm.
So say your question again, because I had somewhere I
Oh
was going,
yeah.
like,
No, no. I was just asking about like because of the social media and all the
okay,
stuff we have in dating apps,
oh
if that is keeping us disconnected in some
yes,
ways.
for sure. But the bigger picture is that we've created a lonely world. we
Yeah.
we have to change the world. Basically, it's a big task. um,
Are you ready to do it? Are we ready to do it? We are ready to do it. That's why we
I
exist,
got
right?
also, I want to give them away to people. I want people to rebuild the muscles, or build the muscles for these times. These are uncertain times. Things feel unstable. So we need new tools. That's maybe part of why this stuff is more visible.
Yeah.
Because maybe even 30 years ago, a meditation or a journal writing session was a beautiful boost to the day as you went out and were feeling stable in the world. But it's not enough anymore because our world doesn't feel stable. I'm not saying it was stable 30 years ago, but we experienced it as stable. Now we're experiencing instability, unknowability. So we humans have reinvented ourselves many times throughout history, our human history. we can do it again. We can build the tools, engineer the tools for connection that are helpful to us today. And that's what I work with my clients.
And what kind of thing how do you feel like, or why do you think we're like what example of instability? I just an example of that.
Everything from you wake up and you think the world is at peace, and then it's actually at war, and then it's at peace, and then it's at war, to you could be
Going
human
back and forth.
being taken off the streets without warning, to
Yeah.
today I can afford healthcare, tomorrow I can't, to
Yeah.
today I have a job, tomorrow I don't, and I have no idea how I'm going to support my family, to I'm stuck with all these
Mm.
big messy thoughts in my head and they're driving me crazy, to, you can go on and on and on. Our institutions are becoming unstable as our
Mm.
world is.
And I totally see that. And I think I see also besides just institutions, and I'm just curious on your thoughts on this, is a lot of things that were unacceptable in terms of behaviors, a lot of things that are unacceptable in terms of language are acceptable in today's world. And I see it all the time on social media, like instead of having a conversation, a connected conversation, I see, well, prove me wrong. Like that's how people start their conversations, or
Uh,
their gestures are showing that right
yeah.
away.
Well, yeah, we're in the last gasp of right and wrong in that way. Those are the Enlightenment science tools. Prove me wrong
Yeah.
is the thinking of the 18th and 19th century science. I have a theory and I'm going to run an experiment and I'm going to prove it right or wrong. That is dying out because we now live in a both and world. That comes out of quantum science, which now we all actually know that word quantum, even though it's 100 years
Hmm.
old as a science. And the other word, the poly word, poly,
Hmm.
that, like, really, we haven't been able to see both and until now, and we have to call it poly to be able to hold that multiple things are happening at the same time. Okay, I'll go with it. But poly means that we have to become more sophisticated in how we move through the world to be able to hold all of its complexity. And prove me right or wrong it's in its last gasps right now.
Well, it's old school, but it's like I see it with gestures or with people actually saying that, and it's all over social media, and we're setting wrong examples, in my humble opinion, to
Yeah.
everyone in that language. I also see on the dating apps, when did it become okay to say intimacy without commitment? And all of the stuff that they're allowing now. That's another, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a hard moment to be a human.
It is. It is. It is. It is. What I'd like to get into is because for people here that are on the call, they've done my folks, they've done healing. That's why they're self-aware. They just need
Yes.
to learn how to regulate and break certain behaviors and all of that. But they've done a lot of healing, and so what would be how would someone, and just example, when you're in your, because you obviously are an expert in this, how do you know, or how would someone know that they're disconnected from themselves? Because a lot of folks are like, I have this. They're in their head. They think they're healing because they're overthinking
Yeah.
24/7 about everything. No, they're in
Yeah.
control. They're trying to control something that they can't control. So
Yeah.
how would in your world know like you're disconnected from yourself and you're actually on a healing journey?
Well, I'm going to say something that is probably ahead of its time. You can't know. You have to
Mhm.
reach out to somebody in your life and say, I don't know right now if I'm connected or disconnected. Can I tell you what's going on? What do you see? What do you hear? Because and that's simple, I guess, I don't know, physics. I stand here, so I can only see myself from inside myself. How could I possibly have all the answers inside of me? if I did, I would be happy and wealthy because there's plenty. I know how, I mean, it's all out there how to be happy. So obviously, we don't have all the answers inside of ours. Yes, we make our own decisions, but we need others. We need a relational field in which to discover who we are and who we're becoming. So, to give you a concrete example of that with loneliness, when I give talks on university campuses, I suggest that young people do a pre-ask with one of their friends. And if
Mhm.
and just to say to somebody, hey, the next time I'm feeling lonely, can I reach out to you? Do a pre-ask. Stakes are lower. And probably 9.5 times out of 10, that person's going to say, sure, I'll do that. And then you have a little bit of a groundwork there so that the next time you're feeling stuck, it's hard to do. But oh my God, okay, I'm going to text or I'm going to, you can maybe you've pre-agreed. I'm just going to send you
Mhm.
a sad, a lonely emoji, or I might want us to talk for 6 minutes, or you can decide what you need in that moment. So the work keeps going. Just the pre-ask isn't enough. You have to keep going, but it makes it more
Yes.
possible to do the thing in the moment. And then you can say to your friend, okay, I'm feeling this way and this way and this way. And they're going to say, are you kidding? You just got an A on your paper and you gave a talk in front of your class. Um and I like you, so let's go have lunch. And then everything shifts.
Isn't that a confidence booster right there by being able to take that step to ask, like ask someone and then you have a connection and now you're like you said going out and enjoying each other's company. And we do that in the dating too world where you pre-ask before the date and get right before you
Yes,
go, and also to get the feedback on where you're
right.
going, all that. And then the after, there's a pre and of course there's in between work, but I get what
Yes,
you're saying. I love that. I love that you're incorporating that.
yes. And what you're saying is that it's the
Yes.
connection with the therapist. That's really important. Going back to the person who's wants
Mhm.
healing and is working with a therapist and then journaling on their own and meditating, that connection is really important. When I was writing my book and I would procrastinate for hours and hours and hours and hours, I finally I started texting. I would go through my friends, different friends, and I would just text them and say, will you please text me right now and tell me to write? And then they did. And then I could write. I just, like you're stuck in this head and you just make that
Yeah.
momentary connection. And it can be a thing that's this big. It doesn't have to be your whole life story, big emotion, trauma. You can do a little thing that completely reorganizes how you feel and how you move through your day.
Yeah, and that connection's so it's so important and also the not having what I'm hearing also is not having the agenda because a lot of folks now put in like when you go on a date, for instance, have the agenda, oh, this could be the one. I'm like, no, that's
No.
not you're just building a connection. You're just getting to know the person and get to know yourself and whether or
Yeah.
not you like yourself around this person. How do you respond?
Yes, that's oh, what you're saying is so important because when we go into those encounters
Yeah.
looking for signs of the one,
Yeah.
we're missing how is this person actually responding to me?
Yeah.
Well, how when I ask them a more direct question, are they giving me anything of their experience in the moment? Or are they taking the conversation out of the room? Or are they um you start dating someone and they show up 30 minutes late for something and then you don't ask because you're like, well, this guy could be the one, so I'm not going to ask how come they were 30 minutes late. But then you're missing that opportunity to um to see how they respond. when you're saying, hey, I feel let down and a little irritated. You said you were going to do this and you're 30 minutes late. What's going on? You're asking it not so much as a moral right and wrong thing. It's like, how's this person going to respond to me when I'm saying something that's uncomfortable? Are they going to stay
Yeah.
with me or are they going to get defensive? That's how you know who your one is.
Absolutely. From listening, right? From listening to the cues. And then also you can
Right.
evaluate yourself too in like how you're asking it, or is that direct enough, or am I
Yeah.
pleasing the other person?
Yeah.
It's awesome. I mean, it's music to my ears. I mean it because this is the part which I believe is so important. It's not just working with one person, but I always tell them I'm one person. Don't rely just on me. That's why you have group. And it's a beautiful thing when they can talk to one another and get feedback, give each other feedback, and you're just sitting back and watching it.
Yes. Yes. Well, yes. And I mean, we've talked about it. I also lead groups, life development groups. And yeah, it's those other humans who aren't our head that are
Yes.
so helpful to help us see. Absolutely. And see,
So
and then you
yeah, go
see
ahead.
possibilities.
Yes,
That
absolutely. Yeah, you see a lot of possibilities for
yeah.
sure, for sure. And I want to ask about because introverts, a lot of introverts, and I'm an introvert too. We like our solitude. We like alone time. What would you say is the healthy balance, or what's the difference between solitude, what would be solitude and like completely isolating?
Well, what comes to mind off the top of my head is when you meet people, hi, I'm Dagmar. I'm an introvert. Nice to meet you. Huh? You know, just make it more ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I in one of my groups right now. So I mean the whole measuring on a spectrum thing, what
Yeah.
value does that add? What the value is letting someone else see who
Yeah.
you are and seeing how they respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
Make the offer. Hey, here's a little bit of who I am and see how they respond. I have a group right now where one of the group members, he's a real straight talker. And recently he was saying in group, look, this group is feeling a little too nicey to me. I'm a straight talker. You all are nice to each other. And the group said, well, we need you to be a straight talker in here. That's really important to us. Because he was saying it like, I don't belong.
Oh, yeah, because he felt obviously different because everyone is nice and he's more direct.
He's more direct. And the group said, no, we need you in here. We want you to be in here direct. So that's what you're looking for. Can you say who you are
Yeah.
or who you think you are or who you want who you're becoming and can people stay with you? Add another line to the scene that you're creating together.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's scary for a lot of people. It's taking that first step and because of the rejection, like they're already like you said, thinking they don't belong. And then
Yeah.
when they say that, they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, they're definitely going to reject me or kick me out." So, um but it is a very important first step for sure.
Yeah, and you can practice it in group.
Mhm.
Like
Yes,
that,
1000%.
that's people come to me to practice their new lines, their new performances, if you will. And then they build up that trust and that trust in themselves and in the process in group, and then they do it in their lives, and they go home to their families and to their dates and even at work, and they discover they can handle showing who they are
Yeah.
and have an ability to have some read on how people are responding to them, rather than
Yeah.
staying in these meta categories that are floating around in our culture.
Yeah, I mean, and you reminded me of how it's so important to be open. You know what I mean? Just being open. And
Yeah.
because a lot of people think they need to keep things to themselves.
Right.
and you know what I mean, and sit there and say, well, I'm going to keep this to myself and I'll share this. But the other person feels that, and it's always going to be a disconnection until you are able to just share. Because things don't have to, well, I guess what I want to share with everybody watching is you don't have to be synthesized. We're in overachievers, like to have everything planned, in control, an
Yeah.
agenda has to be synthesized. We get into that no filler words. You have to have a perfect speech. You have to be composed, all that
Yeah.
performing. And it's like, no, that's what actually, and we're taught that in corporate America to do
Yeah.
that. And
Yes.
that's what actually disconnects you more and more from people.
Yes. Yeah. Um, oh, I had a thought to what you were saying. Oh, it's just another example. Well, I'll go with whatever's. I have another example of
Go
this.
for it. Yeah, go for it.
A client in one of my groups who was working through a very difficult marriage and then separation, and she decided in that process of her growing in terms of who she wanted to become, that she was going to go to people in her life and say to them, I'd like to be emotionally closer with you. Would you like to do that with me?
That's powerful.
And through that process, she found the people who did want to be emotionally closer with her.
Wow, for her to say that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. She learned how to do that in group. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. That has got to make you proud. Feel really.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say one other thing
Yeah.
because I'm using the word performance also, and you're using it, and we're using it in different ways. And I just want to be
Oh,
clear.
okay. Okay.
I'm a little heartbroken that performance is taking on this negative connotation because I mean it in our human capacity to be who we are and be other than who we are in the human development way, in the way that babies are not speakers but they are performing as speakers. They're performing a head taller. That's what I mean when I'm saying performance, like that theatrical, that our capacity as humans, as far as I know, no other animal does this. We get on stage and we perform as somebody we're not. So it's like rather than I understand it, it's a total drag in the office where you have to suppress who
Yes. Submit, submit.
I submit. I wish it had a different word than performance, because to me, the beautiful thing about performance is that we all have the capacity to try on new performances.
Well,
We
maybe
can,
you'll take my word and I'll be able to see it a little bit differently because I appreciate you saying that. Because when we think about when you were talking, I think about, oh, yes, performances like theater, they're beautiful, or like Broadway shows, they're
yeah,
beautiful. They're like becoming bigger than they think they can even become.
yes,
And that's how you're looking at it. And in our
yes,
world now, and what I see a lot of in dating, it's a performing where you're fake. You're not who
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
And it breaks my heart, really,
yeah,
because
it's
I almost, I take it as conspiratorial that they're just snatching human development away from us.
but that's
So
why we exist.
yeah. So that's what I mean. I use a
Okay.
lot in my work the metaphor of theater, of improv, of yes anding each other, of listening for offers that comes out of improv. In my couples work, hey, let's do that was messy. Let's do a take two. Let me help you try another line here so people can try out. Again, if we already knew how to do the thing, we wouldn't need help, but we do need help. So let me help you out here. Try this line. How does that fit for you? How is that impacting on the dynamic in your conversation? So I use all of that in my world.
That's great. That's great. Because that also helps people to not be perfect. It takes away the perfectionism completely. And it's like, show up as you are, messy as you are. Conversations are going to be messy.
Yeah.
And don't you feel like people are more connected to that messiness? They like it.
Yeah, once they discover, and we have to be very good coaches and
Of
lead
course.
to create the environment where people are supported to stretch, to
Yeah.
try something new, to perform ahead of themselves. And once they discover that they can do it and the sky doesn't fall down on them, they discover their power. And in a way, you could say that this is a period in which we're very disempowered. Um, so if there's a context in which we can discover our power, feel our power, not in this I'm right, you're wrong, I'm going to conquer you power, but in our power to authentically create with others.
Hmm. Love
That,
it. Yes, authentically creating with others.
yeah.
I guess I'll just leave it to one last question. I always like to have an action question on what my audience, what they can do, or what step could they do, or what do you think they could do to feel more connected? Because they're on there, some of them are on, not all of them are on dating apps, but some of them are on dating apps, and then other folks do go to retreats in person. But I'm just curious, what would you say would be one thing they could do?
Well, I'll give you two things. One
Okay.
is already the pre-ask, which you don't even have to do with the person you're going on the date with. Do it with your friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, can I call you before? Can I text you after the date? Whatever that is. And then another thing would be when you're on a date and you're starting to get in your head and worry about whatever you're going to worry about. We have so many things we can worry about. Rather than try in that moment to look outward and just ask a curious question. One way to get out of, just like I told that story of I just needed to text somebody and have them text me back, and that would get me to writing. Just go with asking a curious question of the person you're sitting in front of. Focus on them, and maybe that'll be helpful to lessening the load of the loop.
Those are great, great suggestions. Great suggestions. So the pre-ask and the after-ask, and then also just being curious, asking a curious question. Love it. I love it. Well, that's it. I'm just so grateful that I got to have you on here because, like I said, this was very enlightening for me.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'm really glad that we got connected.
Me too, me too. And I believe this is really going to help all the listeners out there that are listening to this and hopefully take action and realize that they're at least not alone and there is something they could do. Awesome.